Hi, this is Bonnie, and I thought that I would make another video with the newest release. It's a book theme release. We've had a book theme release before, but this is a newer one, and I'm also going to be combining some other stamps from our past collections. This was, it's always easier to see this if I raise her up. This is Polina, and she is holding a book, and she can sit and on several different things. And this is our Pages in Time. It has become quite popular, and I apologize for the light up above. It's a rainy day, rainy night, and so the only way I can videotape is with the lights above. So anyway, this is called Pages in Time, and this is from a past release. And if you notice, there's a little bit of a similarity between the trees, and so I thought I'd kind of combine them. This one's called Lantern Tree. And I am also going to be using BumbleTwinkle paper, and the paper that I'm going to be using from that pad is this one, and that actually happens to be, I got that turned around according to this, that happens to be the, doesn't matter which way you use it, obviously, but it's this one down here in the bottom. And then I'm also going to use the stencil we've had, Fairy Hug stencil we've had for a while. This one's called Woody. And the other thing I'm going to be using is, this is Fairy Hug's Dictionary, and this is really a great background stamp. So I'm going to get this all put together, and we're going to, oh, one other thing is I made a mask for the Polina one because I'm going to be layering her up. Okay, so we're all set up. I want to stamp on top of the stencil. I just want this to show through the stencil. And so in order to do that, I also did not want the stencil to go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to show you to this because I didn't want it to be too busy. So this is just going to be at the top part, just like that. And I'm going to do both sides. And I am going to start with VersaFine Clear Morning Mist because I don't know that I want it to be overpowering. I want it just to be sort of subtle, and I'm hoping that we'll still be able to see the design. I'm hoping that it presses down enough that it's not raised up too much, so that I can get the design of the trees in the background still. We'll see how that works. Sometimes I've seen people do this, but they have used rubber stamps instead. So I can see that it's perfectly going wonderfully on my stencil, and I can see some. So this is what I'm going to do then. Is I'm going to actually put the ink on my stamp and press it by hand, thinking that I can get maybe more down into those grooves. It actually looks really cool on the stencil. I could really turn around and stamp that for sure. So I'm going to do it this way and push in there because it doesn't really matter that you can read the words. I just want a little bit of that texture back there. And this is working better, much, much better. And it's just kind of random. And it's and the color is what I wanted in terms of the using the VersaFine Clear Morning Mist. So we can take a little peek at that. And you can see it's just random. It doesn't really particularly look like trees after all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with this because I still want those letters back there. But I'm going to come back in, just going over some of them. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of ink and see what I can do in terms of getting that in there for the shadow. I think that's what I'm going to do. So for right now, I'm going to continue to do this on this other side. I don't care, I want it to be random, but it would be really cool turning around this and stamping that, but I don't have a paper set up to do that. Okay, even if these words are upside down, you almost can't really read them. Let's see. that's the right way anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead, like I said, set that down and press, make sure I press in there. So this is working better than doing an acrylic block or using the platform, just by doing it by hand and getting it in there. Let's see. Yep, that works really well. All right, I really like it stamped on this. I really want to turn around and see what it looks like if I just stamp it. I think I'm going to try, because I can see how some of it would still work if it stamps. It should stay wet. Yeah, it's not doing anything on it, so that's okay. But I am going to use this, seeing as I know it's not going to do a whole bunch of, well, it does rub. I put my finger on it. It does rub, but it's not stamping. So I'm going to use a brush, or a blending brush I don't care so much about, so that I could actually still do some stenciling on top of this. And I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use pumice stone. I don't want to use a lot because I'm going to be stamping on top of this. Let's see what happens. I'm going to do it over here where it's not going to show up as much, just to test it. I know my pumice stone is not real wet, so I might have to go with a different one to get that. Well, it's still kind of subtle. Let's see. I'm always testing things with you guys just to see how it works. I thought, what's the point of doing a video if I can't share how to try things? And it does seem to be working, so you can see it. And that's kind of like what I wanted. And it actually is rubbing off some of this ink. I can see that it's coming off, but that's okay, because I used a brush that's not as good. So I might be pulling some of the ink from the VersaFine clear, which might even be better, because for stamping on top of, it's probably better than the oxide. Okay, I'm gonna get over here, and you can see I did not bring it all the way to the edge because I knew I was going to be stamping that big tree there. All right, let's take a look. Okay, that's the look that I wanted, so I'm really happy with that. So I'm going to get the rest of this set up really quickly, and then we'll get stamping. Okay, so I have the lantern tree all set up to the side, and I am going to be using, I decided, the morning mist again. And there's a kind of a reason for that. I want this to be more in the background, plus if I want to add some color to this tree, it will be very easy to do. Plus it's more of an outline than a silhouette stamp. So it's easy to color. And I'm also thinking, because I'm going to be adding the pages in time on top of this, if I make pages in time and nocturne, I won't have to mask anything off because the lighter color will be behind. So that's the plan. We'll see how that works. And I have that light from up above, but yep, got some of that's missing. Okay, so that's very light. I really like how this whole tree thing is in the background. It's really kind of cool. All right, so I've got that all stamped. It looks, and then yes, it would be a lot more prominent if I would have made it darker, but I told you my reason behind that. So the next step would be to add this. However, I know that I want to have Polina masked, so she's going to have to go on first. She's going to have to be stamped first. I need to find her really quickly. Okay, so she's going to be sitting right here. And so she has to be masked. I'm going to have that kind of close to that one, I think. I'm trying to see how I want that all spaced out. And let's see if I can make this work better. There we go. So you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to space her out like that. And she is going to be sitting on this trunk from a previous collection. The sunflower table, I'm going to be using this trunk for the seat. So that's the plan. let's see. She's got to get stamped first. She will be getting stamped in VersaFine Claire Nocturne because she's going to be in the front. So I'm going to get her on and then take those pieces behind her off. And get out my Nocturne. So there's always this little process when you do masking, how to get that to work. I haven't stamped her yet, so let's see if she's going to give me a good impression. Okay. Yep, that looks really, really good. Yep, I even think I've got the whole wing part. Yep. So she's done. But then I'm going to have to use, I did cut out the mask, but the only part that I needed cutting out was the front part. I didn't need to cut out her wings. And usually when you look at the back of this, there is a line that you can pull out from, but in this case there is not. So I need to find a place where I can actually pull this apart so I can get masking. All right, so this is sometimes the part that takes the longest. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to line this up over her so I will be able to stamp on top of her without ruining her. Okay, so she's good to go. And let's see, we're going to get, I think we're going to do this first. And you can see how she's going to be going. She would have been right. It just would not have worked, but she's sitting really good right there. So now we're going to get, this is called Pages in Time. And Pages in Time is going to go right on top of her. The mask. And I am going to use the Nocturne for this one too. That will work fine. Keep my pads separated so I don't grab the wrong one. Again, I haven't stamped this one yet either, but again, it's not a really solid silhouette stamp, and that's really, so it should stamp fine. Okay. All right. And the only parts that you can ever have really difficulty when you do masking is if there's a bump in terms of how thick your masking paper is. And this Gina K is what I'm using. It is really good. It's thin, and I usually don't have too much of a problem with a bump. It usually does a really good job. However, my stamp needs to be inked more. It didn't ink, or actually I see the ink still on it. I just must have pressed in that spot very well. I'll get that again. Let's see. I got that this time. Yeah, I can see a little bit right here. Yep, ink is still on my stamp. When you lift it up and you hold it back, you can see it's not on there, but you can still see the ink, you know, you need to press. Okay, I think that looks really, really, really good. So I'm trying to look at it in more detail. It's always hard to see it when I'm doing it. I know I can do a little bit more up here. I mean, I can see a little bit. It's not bad. But it's not going to hurt to have another pass. But you can see how it stands forward from the big tree behind. I wanted to have a little bit of contrast instead of blending in, so you could see the stamp. Yeah, that looks great. All right, so I am going to keep, I probably should have, I wasn't thinking about this part right here. I should have left that on for the book because I want to put that little, what she's sitting on there. And that's going to show up. And I wasn't considering that at all. But that's okay because I'll color that in. I am going to still go I think because she's black, I'm going to use a morning mist. Even though this is black right here, I'm still going to use a morning mist. Brown would have looked good, but I don't have any brown on here, so I'm not going with a brown. But FYI, I needed to consider the corner of this being masked off, and I wasn't thinking. But we'll make that work. I'll somehow make that work. All right, I'm going to stamp it twice. This will make it just a little bit darker, but still not as dark as she is. All right. It's not as dark as everything else. All right, so let's just take a peek and see, I did need to cut that off. And yeah, I should have done her wings. I put it up too high. That's all right. We're going to fix that too. We're going to fix all of that. Again, I should have cut it closer to the wings. I didn't even realize I was going over. So you can see that on there. So what to do? I can't put the stamp back on, right? So I'm going to get my Copic. I'm not going to get rid of this because I've done a lot of work. I'm going to get my Copic multiliner, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here with these lines and draw them in, because those are easy enough to draw in. And other than you watching the video, wouldn't know that that wasn't already there the right way. But the multiliner works really good drawing those things in. And I need to draw it down here, I can see too. Catch that up there. There. So that worked pretty good. That's going to work really well. And then I'm going to color her wings in too. So you can't hardly even see this, really, the book part right there in the corner, but I'll color that in too, and that'll make that work. So I'm pretty happy overall with how that turned out. So some things for you to learn is kind of like pay closer attention to when you go to do the masking. I should have cut that part of her wings off, but, you know, for when I did the masking. Let me show you. Where did I just put that? Yeah. I should have cut this part right up here off just so that it would have lined up. And then these little pieces, I probably would have still drawn those in anyway. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. And really the next thing I really want to do is do some coloring. And I'm also going to be stamping the, which I didn't show you at the beginning. I'm going to be stamping in the journal butterflies. And I'm just going to put those up here by cutting them out and putting them on so it's more of a 3D. So that turned out really well. I'm really pleased. I mean, like I said, that's not that really big of a deal drawing that part in. So I'm going to go ahead and do some coloring and stamping those journal butterflies, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I totally changed my mind. I was going to cut these out and make them so they raised up, but you know what? I'm happy with just stamping them on. So I'm going to be using, again, so that they'll show up on top of the ink I already used in the background, I'm going to be using Nocturne and just stamping those up there at the top. Just like that. These have worked out really, really well, and they look really, 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 really great. So I'm really pleased. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of color, and I'll be back. Okay, so it is time to finish up with this card. I did color it in, and I also added, like I usually do, the Folk Art Extreme Glitter to the window, her wings, and to the butterflies. And I also used the Sparkle Pentel glitter pen to highlight, as you can kind of see some of that in there. Okay, so I just wanted to ground the bottom of this, and I am going to be using gathered twigs and a blending brush and a torn piece of paper. And I decided I'm going to try to go in that fashion first, how that kind of like catches a little bit all of them. I got to be careful with my fingers. That stuff might still be a little bit wet. Let's see, maybe I'll start here on this side and go that way. I just want to get that one up there. I don't want that to move too much. All right, and I'm going to try to get some of it down here and just see how we're doing. Okay, and take a peek at that. All right, I can see I need to add a little bit more and cover that up. All right, I'm going to do this a little bit. All right, and I need to join these all together. And with that sitting up there and having that little bit of a peak, makes it a little bit harder, so I think I'm going to go like this. And then add some up there. Yep, because I want to keep this all kind of working together. All right. Peak right there. And then we'll get some over here. To make it look like it's a little bit continuous, I guess. It's sitting there in the dirt. I think I can actually get a little bit of this. I apologize to that if you can hear that drilling, and my husband is doing some painting in the house, and he's also sanding and stuff like that. So anyway, I think we're gonna go. I think I need to add a little bit more on this side. All right, so that's gonna be our card, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that on a black card, just like that. And then I'm all finished. So I appreciate you stopping by. I'm going to have all the supplies down below in the description of what I used, and I will have a picture of this at the beginning of the video. Thanks so much for stopping by.